Good morning and welcome to the September 8th, 2016 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item, there are speaker request forms on the left of the dais. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary. At this time, if you have a cell phone or other electronic device, please turn it to silent or turn it off. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. The public hearing on item number 1, which is the approval of the August 25th Zoning Board of Adjustment, is opened. Sounds good. Linda made the motion to approve. Karen seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing no opposition, Jan made a motion to adjourn. Karen seconded that motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. That moves us on to the Planning Commission meeting for September 8th. Again, if there are items that you wish to speak to, you can fill out a speaker request form and hand it into the secretary. Items 1 through 3 have been placed on the consent calendar and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the city council. The city council will make the final decision. I don't think we have any that we're making the final decision on, so we'll just move to are there any items that we need to remove? Any items that the audience would like removed? Any items that a planning commissioner would like removed? Linda made the motion to approve items 1 through 3. Is there a second? Jan seconded that motion. All those in favor of approving items 1 through 3, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. John has abstained from the motion, or the approval, I guess. Item number 4.
Item number 4 is a major amendment to a planned development to allow an on-sale liquor establishment in conjunction with a theater. In particular, this is for the Seed Theater at Abby's Feed and Seed, located at 412 5th Street, just across the street from here. And it's part of the Barefoot Dance Studio. Let me take you through some slides. Property zone general commercial district with a planned development. Currently, there's Abby's Feed and Seed and all the shops, and we've done a lot of planned developments, reducing parking, landscaping, and other things to get more investment into this property. Future land use shows it as downtown, and 5th Street is an arterial street. The theater and dance studio are located on this, I believe that's south side of the building with 5th Street here. The applicants indicated that the on-sale use will not occur at times when there are children in the dance studio. So it'll be mainly on weekends and in the evenings that the on-sale use will be taking place, and that would be in conjunction with theater events, art exhibits, music performances. This is taking a look at the parking plan for the interior of the site. The parking has been reduced for what is the proposed uses on the property. This is the location of the Barefoot Dance Studio and the theater combination. looking south on Fifth Street and to the north, and the parking garage located to the west, including the Main Street shops at Main Street Square. This is located within the established downtown core, or on the edge of what is the established downtown core, where we expect these types of uses to be located. And the comprehensive plan supports promoting cultural uses such as theaters and reinvestment in the downtown, and the downtown being a regional activity center. If approved in conjunction with the theaters, this should have minimal impact, and staff recommends that the major amendment be approved with stipulations. Are there any questions for staff?
Thank you, Fletcher. I don't see any. I have a light up from Darla Drew.
It's not really a question, it's more of a comment that I don't know if you guys have been to the Barefoot Dance Studios or this theater, but it really provides a valuable resource for those acts and concerts and recitals that don't have access or money to rent some of the larger facilities in the area. I mean, I think they rent out for like $20 an hour, which makes it really easy for young people to use this for their events. And I absolutely love this space. It's kind of just a black box space. It's very easy to use. It's got the parking across the street, and if you ever have a chance to go there, they have an aerialist studio. They have the studios for the kiddos too, and I really could support giving them this option for some of their concerts and some of their performances at night. They really need this to help them continue to provide this service to make it affordable for the small groups. So thank you.
Thank you. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question, you said this is in the downtown core. Is it in the central business district?
No, the property is on general commercial district, but the future land use shows it as downtown.
So what does that mean? With regard to the parking variance?
Mr. Chair.
Vicki?
So in the downtown core, as we see that plan come forward again for the Planning Commission's consideration, it will have a designation different than the central business district, but it will take into an account that there needs to be an overall reduction in the parking requirement. And at this time, the recommendation is that they provide 30% of what otherwise would be required. And I'm not sure if their numbers would even meet that. What we did identify through our previous reviews is that because so many of these activities are in the evening, the parking structure provides that off-street parking. And to date, we've not had complaints of parking concerns created by the uses at this campus. And so with the addition of the on-sale, it shouldn't trigger any additional parking. And we didn't think that it would be something that would be a factor in seeing that it was creating adverse impacts on the neighborhood for this application.
So is this a variance or an exception with regard to the parking?
No, the parking was previously granted. This does not trigger any additional parking. You'll notice in Fletcher's stipulations that he's just asking that we acknowledge all of the previous exceptions that were granted, and that goes to the parking and landscaping, et cetera. So we're still acknowledging those, but it doesn't trigger any additional parking for this use.
So it's going to be less than 30% that would have otherwise been required,
Correct.
and that has been previously approved.
Correct.
And the surfacing for that area is?
I believe they've is it?
I believe it is paved. I know that they had come in with an alternate design. You're right, John. At one time, they were going to do some pavers and have some green space with the parking, but the maintenance on that became problematic and costly, and I think at the end of the day, they just came back and paved it, typical of any other parking area.
Okay. Well, I support the application, but the parking on that site has in the past been problematic for people that wanted to develop that site. And I believe that future development will be looking for some of the same variances and exceptions as we see things come forward. So I guess probably I want to make sure there's clarification so when people come forward, don't have to wrestle this problem again, if this perhaps approval makes a statement. And secondly, with regard to the statement in there that liquor would not be served during the time that young children were, how does that work?
I believe because most of their events are happening in the evening and on weekends, and they're purposely saying when classes aren't in session for kids.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So they submit an operational plan, and we approve these contingent upon them operating in compliance with that plan. And we've done this at several other venues around town. The Rapid City High School is a great example. There's a daycare and an art theater and a school and on-sale liquor. But they cannot have children on the property at times that there is on-sale liquor, and that would go with this too. Per their operational plan, children cannot be on the property while they're selling the on-sale liquor. Now, I would assume that if parents show up for an adult event and they have children in tow, just similar to them going to a restaurant where you can bring children and have a drink served, that would be different. But if it's a children's recital or a children's activity, alcohol would not be served.
Thank you.
Thank you. Andy?
When the downtown east item comes fully forth, would this be part of general or the downtown district? Therefore, we wouldn't have to deal with the parking issue moving forward.
Mr. Chair, this would be a part of the downtown core, and Andy, you are correct. We'd look at those numbers, and as we saw additional changes in uses that may trigger different parking calculations, we would be bringing that forward to you at that time, identifying if it still stayed within that 30%, or whatever that number is that gets approved when the final version does come forward for final approval.
But it wouldn't be considered part of the downtown business district where there isn't a parking requirement.
Correct. It would not be the central business district. Those boundaries are not getting expanded.
Okay, thank you.
Linda made the motion to approve. Second. Jan seconded that motion. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 5.
Good morning. Item number 5, Sarah Hansel, Long Range Planning. Item number 5 is a petition for de-annexation of approximately 10 acres that are located east of Highway 16 and south of Samus Trail. We don't see a lot of petitions for de-annexation, so we wanted to bring this one to your attention. The staff recommendation is to approve this application. I'll go through some information about the project. Keep in mind, in 2014, the council adopted a resolution to establish the city's policy for reviewing de-annexation requests. The policy identifies 14 criteria to consider when determining whether or not to remove property from the corporate limits. And in this case, 9 of the 14 criteria would support de-annexation. So I'll just briefly point out some of those criteria as I take you through some slides. The property here is located, or shown here, it's currently zoned general agriculture. Here's an aerial view of the photograph showing that the property is currently used for residential purposes. There's a single-family home as well as 2 outbuildings. The future land use for this property is low-density neighborhood. This is the major street plan showing no impacts. Here is a look at the property from as you've exited Highway 16. This is an unimproved road. Here is looking down. We're now heading towards the property, having left Highway 16. This is a look east at the property from Samus Trail. This is the property then that is currently requesting to de-annex. This is looking south of the property and west back towards Highway 16. And north of the property. So as I stated before, this property is occupied and used for residential purposes, though the area surrounding the property also has agricultural character. It is located on the outermost periphery of the corporate limits. It is within the urban services boundary, however, it is not being served by any municipal services. The closest utilities or street services are located more than 500 feet away. There are currently no CIP projects planned within 500 feet of this property, and it is not located with any donut hole that has been identified as an annexation priority for the city. And in addition, de-annexation of this property will not result in any discontiguous portions of the city limits. So the 4 criteria that weren't met for the policy then, just so you're aware, there are residences there who do use city services. It is within the urban services boundary. The property is platted and it is used for a purpose other than agricultural, though like I stated, the nature of the property is agricultural. So staff's available for any questions if you have any.
Thanks, Sarah. I don't see any. I guess I have one. And this is just I can't recall the last time we had a de-annexation. Does the county have to offer any approval to this? I mean, do they have any added responsibility? Not that there's anything that they would really do out there, but.
Yeah, this county would take it back in and zone it back to their, based on their criteria, and they have no objections to the annexation.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, we route these to the county, and there was some discussion, just putting them on notice that this then goes back into their tax bracket and out of the cities, et cetera. So certainly no objection from them that this become a part of their territory again.
Okay. Thank you.
I think the last time we did this was the David Lamb property over east of Elks Country Estates. I think that's the last one that we did.
Okay. Thank you. Andy?
Excuse me. So if you de-annex, what happens, maybe we're 5, 10, 15 years down the road and you see more growth going that way and there's more of the peripheral property around this property starts to be annexed. Can they choose to get annexed back in at that point in time? Is there any, once you're out for good, or can you have the opportunity to come back in?
No, they would have the opportunity to come back in, assuming they remain contiguous to the city limits, and then actually would be required to annex if any future development required additional platting on the property.
Okay, thank you.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think maybe that answered my question. You said at the end of your presentation, Sarah, that, and I didn't understand, these people do use city services now?
Such as like the library or the Adult Arts Center, or just in general, people who live in this region use Rapid City for their grocery shopping, for their just general.
And as part of the city, they pay nothing at the library that a city resident would not pay.
Correct.
Now, as a county resident, do they pay anything to use, for example, the library?
I believe the library does impose
Yes.
a fee for non-residents.
Actually, Pennington County residents can use the library for free. Other county residents need to pay a fee to use the library.
Okay.
But that's true, yes, there is a levy in Pennington County for the library.
So, understand the library situation. Are there other services? I guess what I'm getting at is, why are they de-annexing? Is there a reason, or does there need to be one?
Their claim in their letter of intent is that because they're not receiving any of the infrastructural services, the road maintenance, the road plowing, they're not connected to any sewer or water facilities, because of those sort of larger infrastructural services, that they would prefer to not be within the city limits and held to the same zoning and also taxes. They will save some money in taxes if they de-annex.
Very good, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Vicki.
Some of you may remember that several years ago, there was a residential development that sat on the agenda literally for years that is just south and slightly west of this property, along what will be in the future Moon Meadows extension to the east from 16. And there were complications with that development because of utility capacity and the cost of upgrades to service that development, and that plat subsequently was withdrawn. And since that time, what this property has been posed with is that if they should decide to further develop, the cost of all of that infrastructure would be on them. Typically, if we have a property that's in the city limits, there's utilities adjacent to it, and they could connect, those would be difficult for us to bring to you as a de-annexation. In this case, there is an expenditure of that improvement, and to date, the utilities are not there for them to connect to. We do anticipate that over time, with what we see going on with the apartments that you recently approved an initial plan development for, there will be the extensions of streets and utilities, and we may be back visiting with this property owner, but could be a significant amount of time before we see development on this site.
Thank you. Karen made the motion to approve de-annexation. Andy seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to the end of the regular agenda. Any further items from staff? Anything to discuss?
Sarah has something she'd like to discuss with you today.
Sarah.
One more item from long-range planning. We'd like to request that the Planning Commission sponsor an amendment to the comprehensive plan to adopt the Box Elder Drainage Basin Design Plan. This is the first new drainage basin design plan that's come forward in 25 years. The reason that we're asking the Planning Commission to sponsor it is so that we do not need to send certified notice to all property owners encompassing an over 10,000 acre area of land. That's not quite feasible to send notice, so we're asking the Planning Commission to adopt or to sponsor this plan. And the plan will come forward on a future agenda, but we'd just like to ask that the Planning Commission sponsor it.
Andy?
Where's it at? I guess 10,000 acres is a lot if it's in downtown Rapid City, but it's not a lot if it's pasture land between Rapid City and Box Elder. And if you were maybe the rancher that owned that 10,000 acres between Rapid City and Box Elder, you might have a different opinion.
It's primarily north, and I don't know if you can see this here. So it's north of Rapid City above the mall and then heading east out towards Box Elder.
And what are we doing? We're just studying. I guess I don't understand what exactly we're trying to accomplish.
So this is an item that's coming from our Public Works Department. As I understand it, this plan is meant to guide Rapid City, Pennington County, Meade County, and other governmental agencies as development continues to occur in these areas. The plan will identify major drainage routes that should be protected in the future, and it will also identify existing and future drainage facilities that are needed to manage stormwater runoff as development occurs from a basin-wide perspective.
So where the purple is essentially doing a study to understand stream and water flows, but we're not doing something where we're going to dictate that John Smith rancher on the Meade County line has to go build a detention pond.
That could be, yes.
Okay, I can't support it
Mr. Chair?
without that notification.
Hey, Vicki?
So we have drainage basins identified throughout our reviewing area, and most of them are studied. And what that does is it allows us to anticipate in the future where we need to work with a developer for those regional facilities. And that doesn't mean that the cost is on them. They're only responsible for the part of the drainage improvement that they need for their development. But what it does allow us to do is when they bring in their plans to say, this is where the regional facility needs to be, this is the area that we need to have set aside within a major drainage easement. We've got some along Sheridan Lake Road, and as we saw that development occur over time, that allowed us to know in advance the area that was anticipated, and it gave the developer the heads up that they needed it for their development too. Otherwise, if they couldn't put it all in one spot, they were dealing with it in a phased project, and that actually ate up more real estate. So overall, this is something that developers and property owners within this area, when they come in for development, because that plan's not in place, they're making a best guess what they need to do, knowing that the regional facilities haven't been secured and identified, so they too can put their water in that location. There's benefit to it But Patsy's correct. If Joe Rancher comes in to develop and the area for a regional facility is on his property, that's something the city will have to work with that property owner to secure that improvement. And again, they're responsible for just the drainage that they would create, not the regional drainage improvement that would accommodate the larger area.
I don't have an issue with the study to understand what's there. I mean, I understand the need for that and the importance of that long range over the next 30, 40 years and what's going to happen with drainage and development. My concern is if we create a plan, potentially without notification, and let's say it's not a developer. If you're going to go in there and put 200 homes, I understand. But let's say we decided on somebody's property that part of that drainage system, there needs to be a detention pond for upstream activity, okay? So maybe he just needs to go get a permit to do some earthwork to build a new dam on his property. Then all of a sudden he sees, oh shucks, I'm part of this major drainage study with all this development, and gosh, I don't want to develop my land. I didn't know that was going on. That's what I'm concerned with. And it's not about the housing developer or that type of development. It's about the existing potential ranch owner, ag person that uses that property and how they use it today. And are we doing something that could change that use for them? If the answer is no, they can still have the rights to use their land appropriately. I mean, I'm supportive of doing it. I mean, I think it's a good thing. I'm just concerned about not letting people know where it could impact them on the ag side. If we kind of put the development side to over here, and we focus on the ag side, I'm worried about the ag side.
So let me just, if you would allow me, Mr. Chair. Sarah, at any point, and maybe Ted knows this too, is there any notification to the property owners of the final plan for their review? Is there neighborhood meetings, anything along those lines? Okay. So your issue really is the notification. Let's get people involved in this and let them know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm all for, making sure we're doing good things for our water down the road. I mean, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I just want people might want to know. I'm a little familiar with the ag community, and I think, some of these properties have been in people's families for a long time potentially, and, we just, information and communication is always good.
We
That's all
would
I'm
be happy
suggesting.
to schedule a neighborhood meeting to invite all of them in.
And Patsy, maybe they wouldn't come, but if they got a letter that said, hey, look, we're studying your area, water flows on your ranch, they might want to know that, and that's all I'm suggesting.
We'll be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Along with Andy's point on the ag side, right now there's just tremendous angst and problems with, is it EPA and rural lands or water protection areas? It's a highly sensitive deal right now in any ag land deal. So I'm a little worried about us sponsoring something that's also going to encompass land in other governmental bodies, Meade County, that area as well. So I guess my question is, I don't know what the difference between a study and the creation of a drainage basin is. Does the study create the drainage basin? And then along with it, some uses or requirements for people that utilize that besides the developers piece. It's the ag piece. So I'm a little concerned, and I hearken back. I was getting a little grief earlier on my long tenure here, but the last time that we crossed the Meade County line, I think we were just doing the road map, which is all that we really do, and that didn't go well. So I want to just make sure that if we're doing a study to do the right thing, that we're not doing it so that we don't have to post notice, that we don't have to include the people who are going to be affected by it, and whether collaboration with some other agency in the development of the study might be a recommendation. I have no idea whether it goes that way or not. And secondly, that I guess probably it wouldn't hurt if we had a little education on drainage basins. My own opinion is that drainage basins are really important, but some of them are so old, like you said, we haven't done one in 25 years, that all the development really makes some of those drainage basin requirements not as effective as they could be. So can we get some drainage basin education before we move forward on a recommendation?
We will get that scheduled as well. I just want to give you a little background. If you look at this line right here is the Meade County, Pennington County line, and all of this area included in this drainage basin is called the Box Elder Creek Drainage Basin. There have been issues for, since I started 24 years ago, with drainage in the Box Elder Basin because it's not been studied. You know, there's a lot of floodplain, there's a lot of issues with where that water actually flows and trying to mitigate some of the issues that are impacting the existing residents within that basin. But we will be happy to schedule Mary, who is our engineer that works with all of the drainage basins. And we have updated several of the basins that have been studied already, but this is the first time that Box Elder Creek has ever been studied on what needs to happen, where the drainage elements need to go, where the ponds need to go. We might have all kinds of issues in here that can be addressed with this particular plan. But we will get those things scheduled. We'll get Mary to come down and give you a Drainage Basin 101 presentation. We'll get a neighborhood meeting so that all of these folks know what to expect, and we'll get some of your issues addressed.
Thanks, Patsy. This might be a bad idea, so please let me know if it is, but you know, I see a lot of already developed area in the background there. Would it be smart to say that those folks may not need to be notified since there's, I mean, a half-acre lot up in the football streets probably isn't going to have any, the drainage basin plan isn't going to affect them. Maybe put a size of parcel on notification, or just notify everybody.
I would be concerned excluding certain property owners from the notice. This circle that I drew, you're right. These areas have already been developed, and with that development, they had to submit their own drainage design plan to address their particular site. What this will do is create more of a regional plan so that it's, every time you piecemeal your plans, it's not nearly as good as a regional plan. But then, each property may still have to have some sort of specific plan depending on what they're doing, but we will be happy to get those things done.
Thanks, Patsy. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to say I support drainage basin plans. I think we've got them all around the city, and a lot of those are outside the city limits already. So this is not something new that we're going to do. But I also know that area, there's development that's occurring, and it's pushing that direction because there's not a lot of other directions to go. And I think it's smart to get ahead of it, just because I think even if you're a rancher, to have that information, to know where to put your ponds, if that's the case, or how deep to make them, or whatever the plan it would be a benefit to people. And I don't think anybody's going to be triggered unless they develop. And I understand Andy's thought about, if he's going to build a dam on his property, but he's in Meade County, he'll probably do it anyway, and, he's not going to let anybody know. He's just going to do it. So, but I also understand the need to let people know that they're doing it. But have we ever done that in the past, notified huge areas of people that we're going to put a drainage basin plan into effect?
I don't believe we've ever been involved with notice for a drainage basin plan.
Yeah, I've never heard of that either. Not that it's bad, it's just, it's going to cause some stir in the community, especially those folks in Meade County. They're going to wonder why we're doing this, and it's going to be interesting if we do that. So.
And for years we've been talking about extending our plating jurisdiction to the north. I don't know that those discussions are totally off the table, but they've just not surfaced within the last several years. But, you know, to protect our community, to protect our infrastructure, to protect our, you know, all of the things that, you know, Rapid City does, that sure could be a possibility someday.
Maybe what should happen is at the next meeting or sometime, have a training session so we know where all the basin plans are and the Planning Commission is more comfortable with it before we vote on doing that. And that might be a benefit to the Planning Commission.
And we can still have that neighborhood meeting. It'll probably be 3 to 4 weeks out, but we can still have that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
The Public Works Department, they conduct studies routinely, and those usually go to Public Works Committee and then on to City Council. This is unique in that it's being brought before the Planning Commission. And so my question, Patsy, is this because it's a part of the comprehensive plan that it's coming to them?
Because we want to include it as part of the comprehensive
But
plan.
we're going to include it into the comprehensive plan ultimately.
Similar
Okay.
to what we've done with other drainage basin plans.
And that might be why you've not seen some of these with our new comprehensive plan that is doing a great job looking at all of the details of development in addition to the big picture. This is a discussion that maybe years ago it wouldn't have been brought to you, but today with our comprehensive plan, this is something that we'll start with at Planning Commission.
Thank you. Andy?
So I want to apologize. I wasn't trying to make this more laborious for staff. I just, you know, I need to support my individuals in the egg status of the 3-mile zone. And what comes to mind in Meade County was a road. And there was a lot of issues over a road. And so I just really, if there's a way to do it without 10,000 letters, however, as long as there's some form or fashion where people can say that they understood that maybe something was happening, I think is important. So I apologize, but I do think people need to know what's going on, or whether even, maybe it's not a letter, but maybe it's a printing in the newspaper. I'll let you guys decide. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. I echo that. I mean, I think there's a higher interest in what we do currently, you know, what the city government does right now. And in general, I think it's a good thing to try to just move something forward without letting people know that who it affects. You know, if they have the notice but ignore it, then it's on them. John?
Is there a drainage tax that people pay? Does this affect taxation on land? If you're in a drainage basin, or if the county taxes or the municipality taxes, is there a drainage tax?
There's a stormwater drainage utility fee.
Would
For
that be
Pennington
one of the
County?
elements of another drainage basin that would affect people?
This plan is not going to impact that fee. What it will do, it will provide funding to potentially make some of the improvements identified in the plan.
Provide funding, what's that mean, Patsy?
So that the stormwater utility fee goes into a special fund
I see.
to make drainage improvements. At some point, some of those dollars in that fund would probably go to pay for some of the improvements identified in this plan.
Okay, thank you.
Linda?
I really support the idea of letting the people know, because I'm aware of a good friend that has a ranch and their 25 stock dams are empty, so they've had to dig a well. I don't know if this would affect something like that, but I wouldn't want to push someone off their land because of us.
Karen?
My question is process. Once, if we say yes, let's go forward and we'll sponsor that, does this go before the Public Works?
Generally, how the process works with a comprehensive plan amendment, we take it to Planning Commission first. Well, let me tell you what we used to do with our land use plans. You know, we would have the land use committee look at, you know, make the determination. Then we would have the plan developed. Then we would have neighborhood meetings, send out those little blue postcards. I believe they're green now, but we still send out postcards. And then, based on that, we make changes as necessary. Then it comes to Planning Commission, goes to Public Works, and then to Council for adoption.
Okay, so down the road, there would be a lot of notification with green cards. Is that what you're saying?
For the neighborhood meeting.
For the neighborhood meetings? Okay. I just thought once it got to the council, that would definitely cause some people to stand up and pay attention. They might not pay attention to what we do, but they would definitely do that for the council. So, thanks.
Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any online presence with any of this yet at this time?
This plan's already online.
So when you have the meeting, if a person can't make it, they can also look this information up.
Yes, and we will include that information on the postcard that we send out.
And if you do anything like a press release, please include that as well. It's just lots of people just can't make meetings these days, so it's always good to have it online. Thank you.
It's a good suggestion. John?
If that discussion is over, I have just another question on a previous issue.
I think we need to act. Are we still looking for action, or are we going to take a pause on this?
Or you can direct us to conduct a neighborhood meeting on the plan, and then after the neighborhood meeting, as part of your motion, direct us to do a neighborhood meeting to get the public involved, and then support it after that neighborhood meeting. So yes, you could vote based on directing us to have a neighborhood meeting and then supporting the application to move it forward after the neighborhood meeting.
In
training.
That case, I'm prepared to make the motion to support you going ahead, but put the training of this group with regard to background on that prior to any agenda item to approve anything. In other words, public meeting, our training, approval in that order.
John made the motion to direct staff to hold a neighborhood meeting and prepare training for us on this item. Jan seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Karen?
I just have one question. Do you know how many people we're talking about, roughly? I mean, are we talking hundreds or?
I'm guessing a couple thousand.
Couple thousand people?
We've done neighborhood mailings that were 5,000.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Any further discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor of John's motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Now, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to go back. Vicki, last meeting we started the discussion on vacation rentals, and I think we asked that be brought forward at the next meeting, end of September. So just a note that I've visited with a number of different people that might be concerned with this, whether it's neighborhoods or the hospitality industry, whatever. It's interesting that feedback I've gotten is like, well, that doesn't happen here. And I was remembering Alderwoman Drew's admonition last time that it's already here. It's sort of like the plague. So I just wanted to say that everybody, I don't think there's broad public perception of what we discussed. So I think we need to have some control over it, very much along the lines that was presented. I look forward to that discussion. But my concern is that neighborhoods and hospitality industry maybe should somehow know that we're looking into this.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So as you know, this item goes before the Planning Commission, and then it ultimately will end up at council for final determination. And the media has flagged this as a story of interest, so I'm sure we'll continue to read about it, and that's probably at this point one of the benefits of them reporting on these meetings. Certainly we meet all notification requirements for any ordinance that we bring forward for you, but that doesn't mean that the right people are reading that. Most of those individuals will, though, listen to a news story or read a newspaper, so we are anticipating. We actually had this discussion just a couple days ago that, that will benefit us by getting more and more people involved. The more that get involved, the better the ordinance we have at the end of the day.
Thank you. I think that's a good plan. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Anything else? Sounds good. Linda made the motion. I seconded the motion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
But they took the